The Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophets. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in the east until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Nestled in between Christmas Eve and New Year's Day is a trio of often overlooked holy days on the church's calendar. December 26th commemorates the church's first martyr, St. Stephen the Deacon, whose monologue in the book of Acts, his last words before being stoned to death, reminds us that the Most High does not dwell in houses made with human hands. As glorious as they might be, or as nostalgic as they may make us feel, filled as they often are with relics and memories of the past. Then, on December 27th, we commemorate our very own parochial namesake, St. John the Apostle, the traditional writer of the fourth gospel bearing his name, the gospel whose words proclaim the central significance of this Christmas season. The Word became flesh and lived among us. Then, December 28th brings us solemnly back to martyrs, the holy innocents, whose tragic story comes on the heels of today's well-known Epiphany gospel, poignantly alluded to in the very last verse, having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod. Why? Well, Herod is frightened, threatened by a competing king, a baby. Can you imagine being so insecure? By a perceived rival to his throne, his power, and his control. And Herod's fear gives way to fury as he orders the death of all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and younger, just to make sure he wouldn't miss Jesus. No sooner do the Magi leave Bethlehem than Joseph himself is warned in a dream to take his family and flee to Egypt to protect the infant Jesus from Herod's murderous plots. The Holy Family, refugees. It's horrifying, of course, but not surprising, as Pastor Heidi Newmark pointedly describes the historical Herod who rose to become king over Judea in the 1st century and proved to be a paranoid, narcissistic tyrant known for massive construction projects, building houses, palaces, and an enormous wall. His ego knew no boundaries or controls, and he lashed out at those he determined were against him. During his reign, he had family members and 300 palace officials killed, all of which came before the massacre of the Holy Innocents, recounted in this Epiphany gospel and in the familiar words of that 16th century carol, Herod the king in his raging, charged he hath this day his men of might in his own sight, all young children to slay. A poignant lullaby sung from the perspective of the mothers, echoing Matthew's own recollection of the lament of the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing in loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they were no more. In the midst of this Christmas season, Herod's story, an integral part of the story of Epiphany that we cannot overlook as much as we might want to, reminds us of a truth we hardly need reminding. That in a world plagued by fear, violence, division, brokenness, all too often all is not calm or bright. Herod's eventual death will allow Joseph and his family to return home, but his son and heir will forcibly transplant the Holy Family yet again to Nazareth out of fear for their safety as the story goes on. And then yet another son, brother to the first, will be the one to behead Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist. And still another ruler, well, not a part of the Herod family tree, but just as ruthless, will eventually be the one to hand Jesus over to be crucified as a means of holding on to his own power. This is no time for a child to be born, yet love still takes the risk of birth. The Herods rage. But this isn't their story, and none of them will get the final word. The gospel will end with life, and the promise of God with us always, as another writer reminds us. This is the epiphany of Christmas, that the good news of great joy cannot be contained, it cannot be threatened or diminished. That neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers like Herod or his kids, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God revealed in the birth of this infant king, this Emmanuel who himself promises to be with us always, to the end of the age. This good news of great joy shines brightly and draws the whole world into the warmth of its embrace. Grace upon grace. The light shines brightly, persistently, defiantly in the darkness, and the darkness cannot, does not, and will not overtake it.